The November scaries are finally coming to an end as December is right around the corner. November has been brutal for Bitcoin and altcoins. Everything is down. But the question is December the month that crypto rallies with the bullish catalyst we have upcoming? We're going to take a look at that in today's video. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and let's talk about December. So first and foremost, if you look at Bitcoin's returns over the last few months, if you look at November, we are looking at a negative 17% dump on Bitcoin. It's been absolutely brutal. And even in November, it was about 4% dump. And typically speaking, October, November are great months for Bitcoin, especially after a halving year. And if you look at Q4 right now, it's not surprising to see Bitcoin's return is a negative 20%. And in Q4 for Ethereum, we're looking at a negative 28%. So it's been absolutely nothing short of disgusting for crypto. I am in the exact same boat as you guys, but we are now turning the page into a new month, into December. And as we all know, there are a lot of bullish catalysts. I'm not going to go into renaming all of these because you guys most likely know them by now. But first and foremost, just in 24 hours, QT is ending. And in about a week's time, we have the FOMC meeting and the Fed is likely going to cut interest rates yet again. So if we take a look at how people are currently thinking about the markets, are people long? Are people short? Is crypto going to go up? Is crypto going to go down? Well, first and foremost, if you look at liquidations, right now, we can see over the last, 24 hours, it's very so even. Bitcoin is still hovering around at $91,000. And as we can see, longs and shorts are very well balanced. But if you go and put this over the last, 7 days, we can see that the amount of longs are actually getting stronger and stronger, meaning that people are likely expecting a bullish reversal on the markets. As you can see, if you go all the way up to, let's say, $84,000, you have about $6.5 billion in the long. And on the short side, if you go all the way up to about $100,000, you only have about $2.6 billion. So what this tells me, it tells me that people are going long, expecting the markets to reverse into December with QT ending and the Fed continuing to cut interest rates. Because as of now, we have not had good liquidity conditions in this market. Even though Bitcoin has gone from $15,000 all the way to $126,000, it did this all during QT. And now that QT is ending, we are finally going to turn the page on that. And that is potentially going to allow markets to go even higher. In one video just a few days ago, we talked about JP Morgan's estimate of the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 right now is sitting at $6,800, and JP Morgan said that in 2026, with the Fed ending quantitative tightening as well as cutting interest rates, this could mean that the S&P 500 goes to $8,000. And if that is the case, well, $8,000 is quite a long ways from where we currently are. We are looking at another potential 16 to 17% on the S&P 500, which ultimately speaking would be massive. And you would imagine that the crypto markets would follow. Now, something else I wanted to mention that's happened over the last few weeks in the markets, in the stock market, but not in the Bitcoin market, is the fact that the stock market has rallied quite well and has actually closed green in the month of November. Now, of course, we know that's not the case for Bitcoin, but taking a look at this, it is quite impressive to see the massive drawdown of the stock market. You also know that there was massive volatility, a lot of fear. The markets were going into extreme fear, both in crypto as well as the stock market. And you can see that by the end of it all, it was back into positive gains for the month of November. And from its low, it was able to rebound quite well. Now, if you take a look at the S&P 500 on a chart and we look at what exactly happened and why we haven't seen this on a Bitcoin just yet, but if you look at the dump in November, well, this was, very much so correlated to what happened and what we saw on Bitcoin. We saw a nice nice dump of about 5% on the S&P 500, which of course tracks the 500 best companies in the States. But in that dump on November 21st, we rallied all the way back to, the previous levels before the dump. So the entirety of the dump or move on the stock market was simply just, pure fear, the headlines, and people losing faith for the matter of a few weeks. And then soon after, it was all the way back. Now, if you look at Bitcoin, we are now sitting around 90,800, and it's been here for quite some time, the last few days. What we are currently seeing right now is we had a low on the 21st, very similar to the stock market, and from there on, Bitcoin has rallied about 12%. So very similar, but yes, of course, Bitcoin has not came back to some of its all-time highs. But in my opinion, what needs to happen now is we need to go back above that 50-week moving average, which is sitting around $102,000. Now, December, like we said, has a lot of good catalysts coming, which is going to bring better liquidity conditions, and we're waiting for people to care about Bitcoin. Because if you remember when it was at $126,000, nobody even cared about Bitcoin. And to me, this is because we did not see good liquidity conditions. We did not see people and retailers talk about crypto and Bitcoin reaching new all-time highs. We're only seeing institutions load the bag, and that is not the euphoria stage that we've seen. So with that being said, in the next few weeks, I am highly going to be looking at the price of Bitcoin and how it wants to react to the news that we are going to get. The next 2 weeks, in my opinion, are going to be very big in the crypto and stock market. Pay attention to it because it is likely going to change the trajectory of the current markets. Now, to illustrate this point, you can go and take a look at the Fear and Greed Index. Despite having the small recovery that we saw Bitcoin go from $80,000 to $93,000, now sitting at $91,000, despite the bullish, end of QT that is happening in just under 1 day, and the next interest rate cuts happening in about 10 days, we are still seeing the crypto markets in fear. We're no longer in extreme fear, but we are still definitely in the fear category as we have retailers and people holding crypto being very fearful because they don't know what is the next direction for Bitcoin. But again, in my opinion, if Bitcoin is able to rebound above the 50-week moving average, we're likely going to see that fear turn into neutral, into greed sooner rather than later. Now, if you look at altcoins are nowhere near anything because, of course, Bitcoin's been down at 30%. Altcoins are not going to move. So right now, you're not in an altcoin season, and I am still waiting on the sidelines to see what happens to Bitcoin before really positioning myself heavier into altcoins, understanding that Bitcoin moves before altcoins. And of course, you're not going to be making crazy gains on altcoins waiting for this altcoin season. You always have to buy lower to sell high, but that is why I'm waiting to see if Bitcoin wants to go higher or if it wants to roll over before making more plays on altcoins. But of course, I haven't sold anything and I'm still holding the majority of my positions. And last but not least, if you look at the current interest in crypto, according to Google Trends, we are still trending down despite the bullish catalysts that are coming. You can see we had a high in August, but since then it's basically back to bear market levels. And if you look at the term Bitcoin, again, some spikes here and there, but even as we were in a new all-time high in October, it wasn't even nearly as high as 2021, where we had 100% interest. Bitcoin is about 2x where it was in 2021, and the interest is 3 times lower. So December is going to be one of those months, in my opinion, that can change quite a lot of things in the stock market and the crypto markets. You absolutely need to pay attention to what happens December 1st and December 10th, and of course, as news comes along and as liquidity conditions become better. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure you subscribe. If you want to stay up to date with the crypto space, have a look at the first link in our description. That's our private Discord. in there, you're going to see what I buy, what I sell, the research that we do, and of course, you're going to have a direct line to me. And last but not least, make sure you smash the like button, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.